Hello and welcome to this Friday's Facebook Live with me, Louisa Whitney from LKW Family Mediation. And this is going to be our last Facebook Live, or my last Facebook Live, until September, because I'm taking quite a bit of time off in August and I think it will be too difficult to continue with the Facebook Lives. And I'm on holiday for quite a large part of it, and I didn't think anybody would want to see me doing a Facebook Live from the side of a sunny pool, hopefully. It's funny, isn't it? Self-care is so important, and even as I'm taking time off, there's a part of me that feels guilty about not being able to offer appointments to people and to not being there for people. Even though I know that I need to take care of myself, and I love the work that I do and I love being able to help people, but stepping away from it regularly to have a holiday and to take some time out is really important, so that I'm always here with energy and, you know, full of enthusiasm for the work that I do. And I think self-care is really, really important when you're going through a separation or divorce, because it's a time when you need to take even better care of yourself. And that kind of leads me onto the topic in today's Facebook Live, talking about what happens for children after a separation, because for children, practicing self-care is actually even more difficult, I think. Firstly, because sometimes they're not even always aware that they need self-care, or what that looks like, or how, you know, what that might look like in their lives. But also because children don't often have control over their own lives, you know, and there's a reason for that. If they just ate chocolate all day or stayed up until midnight every day, then it wouldn't be in their best interest. So their parents make decisions for them about what is best for them. But that means that they're not always able to choose what it is that might be best for them. And this is something that comes up in a separation or a divorce, because children are very much a part of the separation. Their world changes too when their parents separate. They may have to move house, they may have to move schools, they will no longer be in a situation where they live in a house with both parents. So there are many changes for children, and often parents try to keep any changes to a minimum, or to implement them very gradually, or to do other things to try to minimise the effects on their children. From my perspective as a mediator, one of the things that I say to clients working with me is that there are 3 key messages that your children need to hear. And each one of those is something that you can build on and do different things. But the fundamental key messages that children need to hear when their parents separate are: 1, that they are loved by both their parents. Even though their parents don't love each other, they are loved by both parents. And it can be a really difficult concept, especially for younger children, that if a parent can fall out of love with another parent, then can that parent fall out of love with them? So it's really important that they're reassured that their parents love them both and they are loved by both parents. Following on from that is that they are free to have a relationship with both parents. So mum doesn't mind if you spend time with dad, and dad doesn't mind if you spend time with mum. And when I say don't mind, I mean that you really, really don't mind, and you show that to your children. It's one of those things. Sometimes I see people who think their children aren't aware of much, but when they talk about things that are going on and changes in their children's behaviour, sometimes they realise that maybe their children know more than they perhaps thought they did. And, you know, we all know children are very perceptive. They pick up on things, you know, even when we don't want them to. Sometimes they hear things that we don't want them to hear. We think they're in another room. We think they're watching TV. We think they're playing in their bedroom, but actually it turns out they have had an ear open. So they're very conscious of seeing yeah, I don't mind if you go to dad's house, with a bit of a grimace, or, oh no, mum's doing that with you, is she? Fine, with a bit of a kind of funny look. So all of those things play in. And because they know that there's something happening, they know there's a separation between their parents, they're often hyper aware of what might be happening. So there's a sort of extra vigilance about anything. So things that they might not normally pick up on, they're much tuned into, because it's something that is ultimately threatening the safety of their world at that moment. And I know that that sounds a bit dramatic, but we are, you know, our kind of primary brain is programmed in terms of looking for things that threaten us. And in this context, mum and dad separating, you know, there's a lot of fight or flight in the autonomic nervous system going on, those kind of reactions. So that can often make children tune into things more than they would have done normally, and have an extra awareness of what's going on around them, and notice things like looks or tones, and maybe keep an ear out for conversations that they're not meant to hear. So that message about being free to have a relationship with both parties is really important. And the last one is knowing that the separation is not their fault. Their parents have separated, and it's not because they didn't tidy their bedroom, because they didn't do what they were asked, because they fought with their other sibling or their other siblings, or because of whatever things that have happened. And that's a message that I think needs to be repeated over and over again, because as new things come up, often it can trigger points about, you know, something new that they hadn't really thought about. Apologies for the presence of an extra fly. I didn't realise I was doing a joint Facebook Live this morning. So those are really key messages that need to come through to children, and to come through over and over again. And, you know, there's probably an awful lot of points that can come through on each of those different points. I mean, potentially there's probably a book on each of those different points. But for the purpose of this Facebook Live, I think those are the key messages that children need to be hearing when their parents separate. If you think that there is maybe something happening with your child, sometimes it can be just you notice some changes in their behaviour. They might be a little bit more withdrawn, maybe less keen to go and play at friends' houses. It might be their teacher says they've noticed they're not concentrating as much at school. Sometimes it can be little things. And, you know, sometimes this is just because they're tired, they've had an argument with their friend. But when you know that there's something big happening, like the separation from their child's other parent, it's really important to look out for any changes in behaviour, because it may be symptomatic of the fact that your child is struggling with what's happening and with the changes. So what I usually suggest to clients is that the starting point is making sure that you can have an open dialogue with children. I think sometimes people are worried about the balance between talking to their children and involving them in the dispute. And I think nobody wants to think of their children becoming involved in their separation and having to take sides. You know, most people know that that's not a helpful thing to do. You know, the film Kramer versus Kramer was made in the 70s, and I don't know if you've ever watched it, but it is quite a harrowing watch in terms of what happens. But it's really important that children are spoken to, and not kind of, it doesn't concern you, you know, that kind of attitude to them, because changes are happening that will affect them. And we all know that change is unnerving, and it's something that we can get quite anxious about. But you tend to be more anxious about changes if you don't know what's happening, and you're sort of constantly worrying about whether you're going to come home one day and find you're going back to a different house. You know, that's probably quite extreme, but whether, you know, one parent's moving out, but you don't know when that will be, and you're sort of on alert to know when that will be. So it's really important that you give children information about what's happening, not in a, you know, a blame game kind of way. Well, that's happening because he did that or she did that, but just facts about what changes they're going to see, what's going to happen. And, you keep the door open so that they can ask you questions and they know that you will make time and make space to sit and to hear their concerns and to talk to them about it. And it can be a long process resolving things in a divorce or a separation. So you may not have all of the answers straight away, but if you don't have the answer, that's okay. You know, as parents, you don't always have all the answers. You know, there's a million questions you might be asked in one day. I remember at bedtime being asked what the first language spoken on earth was, and that wrong-footed me quite a bit. So it's okay not to have the answers, but you can give as much information as you can, and you can say that you'll talk about it again in a week, in a couple of weeks, and you'll update them, you know, once you have a clearer idea of what the change might be or what the plan might be. If you are concerned that there are lots of changes in your children's behaviour, or that they really don't seem to be on song or very happy, then you might want to think about looking at what extra help you can access for your children. Sometimes it can be helpful for them to have someone to talk to who's not involved in their parents' separation. Sometimes that could be a friend's parent or a family friend or a family member, but it's important that that person isn't taking sides or doesn't have an axe to grind. So that may be a possibility, but in some circumstances it may not. Your children's school or nursery can often be quite a good source of help. Sometimes schools have outside counsellor services or a counsellor that spends some time in school that your children may be able to access as a qualified person who can be a listening ear for them. And, you know, that sometimes can be quite a helpful way of just helping them to access a bit of extra support, a sympathetic ear, someone who's supportive outside of the situation. Your GP may also be able to help with letting you know what services there are in your area, or if you are, you know, concerned and you feel that there is some real help needed here, they can make a referral to CAMS, which is the Children and Adolescent Mental Health Service. There are also other organisations where you might be able to get some help and support. I talked about these in the blog on this subject, but one of them is Resolution, which is an organisation that represents people who work with couples who separate, and their website, resolution.org.uk, has quite a lot of information for parents separating. CAFCAS, who are like social workers who are attached to the court and who get involved where there's a court application concerning a child, to prepare a report about the children's wishes and feelings and what might be in their best interests. Their website has quite useful information. If you Google CAFCAS, CAFCAS, two S's at the end there, then that's potentially something that might guide you towards some more support. There's also a charity that I'm really proud to support because they are doing such amazing work, called Voices in the Middle. And they are a charity that aims to help children whose parents are separating with support. And they have a digital service that has recently launched that enables young people to talk to somebody supportive online. Their service currently is primarily aimed at the age group 13 to 17-year-olds, hence the kind of digital service. But their intention in the longer term is to roll out their resources for younger age groups. And they have a young people's steering group that's been very much part of the work they've done to ensure that what they're doing is relevant and approachable for young people, which is really important because, you know, there's a lot of pressures facing teenagers today. And a lot of the time, things that I hear are that they don't necessarily want to talk to their parents. So directing them somewhere where they can access support is a really, really wonderful tool. So have a look at that website, Voices in the Middle. If you Google them, that should come up as well too. Hopefully that is some places that you can find help and support and information. Local support groups for divorced and separated parents can also be useful in helping you to tap into other support in your local area that you may not be aware of. And I hope that that really helps you to sort of have some idea of what are the key messages that your children need to hear when you're going through a separation, and where you can access support if you are concerned about them. If you would like to get more information about what to do in a separation and guidance on topics that are coming up for you, then the best thing to do is to join the mailing list that we have at LKW Family Mediation, because that enables you to access all of the resources that we send through, and we're always trying to find new resources, new information, and cover new topics that will be of use to those going through a separation. You can either join onto the list by going to lkwfamilymediation.co.uk, or if you go to bit.ly/LKW that's LKW list, then that will give you the sign up. If you are another professional who works with couples who separate and you're watching these lives for more information about how to help couples that you work with, then there's a list of professionals which also includes details of our training events, and you can sign up on that either by dropping me an email, louisa@lkwfamilymediation.co.uk, or again there's a direct link which is bit.ly/LKW sign up. So LKWFAMMEDSIGNUP. That was a bit of a spelling test there. So I hope that's helpful, and I hope that you have a enjoyable and as stress-free summer as possible, and I look forward to coming back to doing more lives on the first Friday in September, which I think off the top of my head is Friday the 7th. So thanks very much for watching.